Delegates, 1 year ago I stood before you for the first time in this grand hall. We have secured record funding for our military, $700 billion this year and $716 billion next year. Our military will soon be more powerful than it has ever been before. The Iran deal was a windfall for Iran's leaders. In the years since the deal was reached, Iran's military budget grew nearly 40%. The United States lost over 3 million manufacturing jobs, nearly a quarter of all steel jobs, and 60,000 factories after China joined the WTO. The ICC claims near universal jurisdiction over the citizens of every country, violating all principles of justice, fairness, and due process. The United States is the world's largest giver in the world by far of foreign aid, but few give anything to us.
Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. That's breathtaking. I mean, I get so annoyed at this man. He fills it with lies every turn. He was laughed at the UN yesterday. What say you, Leroy?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be with you on this show. And also salutes to your staff. We call it the support staff.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that you don't see, people that the audience doesn't see, but who make this work. And this is a time of awakening. If we weren't awake before, it's a time of awakening for black people in particular, because there are certain forces that have been in motion in this nation to set back the advances of black folks, in particular, of black Americans in particular, those rights that we fought for, that our people fought for in the 60s. Many people died, and the fact is, Brother Gilchrist, is that even if we did not physically fight, our ancestors got us here by virtue of fighting to survive and to have their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren live in spite of what might have been happening. So when we see an individual like Mr. Trump, I'm amazed at how
People believe him. How can people believe what he says?
And at the same time, it's no big thing. When I say it's no big thing, I'm not saying it's no big thing.
To them.
To them, because I was in Philadelphia Monday for the sentencing of Bill Cosby. And I watched the victim, the alleged victim. I watched the mother, I watched the father, I watched the sister, I watched the prosecutor, I watched the judge, I watched the so-called expert who was determining that Cosby was a sexual predator, a violent sexual predator. And I will tell you this, that if you weren't at that trial, or if you weren't at the sentencing, and based on what understanding I have from women, black women who were at the trial, if you weren't there, the news media has created a whole different picture of what actually happened. So I'm saying that in context with Mr. Trump, everybody's lying. And when I say everybody's lying, people that we look up to for freedom, justice, and equality, the enforcement of freedom, justice, and equality in America, the judges, the prosecutors, the experts that they bring up there, I tell you, it's astonishing, and at the same time, it's a warning signal for us.
Well, the important thing to understand about Trump, he never hid what kind of scoundrel he is. He never hid it at all.
What you see is what you get.
Well, you knew that. I mean, what it was, we here in New York knew exactly what kind of ass he was. There was no doubt that he was an ass. He was jealous of Obama. He set out against Obama when he was embarrassed. He was laughed at the dinner. 2012, was it? All right? And he had been laundering money through the Russians all along. This is nothing new. He worked with the Russian mafia out in Coney Island. He worked with the Italian mafia in New Jersey. You don't build a casino in New Jersey without being attached to the mafia.
Without the Sopranos, right?
Without the Godfather's blessing. Come on now.
Without
Now,
the real
let's
Sopranos.
talk real. Let's talk real. So he's
Oh,
always been a
man.
gangster. And a playboy and a player
Yeah,
at a time
yeah.
where everybody was playing.
Yeah.
Especially the 70s when he was a youngster.
He's been around.
I mean, come on. He's a New Yorker.
He's been around.
His father was a Klansman, so that's no way he inherited this stuff. But we all knew that here in New York. But he couldn't get away with half his racism here in New York to a certain extent. Of course, you got the housing problem that him and his father had in the 70s.
Yeah, yeah.
But
They have gotten away with some
okay.
stuff where, whether it's his development or not, on the west side, there is a luxury building that has affordable housing within it.
okay.
And I put, quote, according to the news reports, and they may or may not have gotten away with it, they had the people who were paying the so-called market rates going in
Right.
one entrance and the people who were paying the affordable housing rates going in another entrance
Of course.
and being restricted from the whole getup. But I mean, this is, we're living in a time when black folks have to take time and look and make an assessment of where we are in America at this time. And I cited the Bill Cosby case as one where the information has not gotten out to the public, to the black public, as to what really happened in that trial.
Well, you know, you and I come up in the same era, and Bill Cosby did not have to do what he did.
What
I mean,
did
if
he
there's
do?
any he was giving girls drugs and knocking them out and having sex with them.
Well, I'm not going to get into.
No,
I'm not going to get into.
no, you
but-
can't deny that.
No,
That
no.
That was Bill's M.O.
Well,
Everybody knew about that.
Wait a minute.
Come on, that was Bill's M.O. That's the way he liked to get it.
Look,
Come on.
here was one person that came up. She's a Playboy bunny. She said he abused her as an adolescent.
Did you hear
or
about
whatever.
that junk when he was around?
Well,
when he
how
was
could
doing
she
it?
be a Playboy bunny and be pure and innocent in that setting? And
Nobody
Bill
was pure and
Cosby-
innocent.
No,
These girls were willing to give it up.
Well-
They were disappointed they didn't get to enjoy themselves.
Well,
All right? And they wake up
Brother-
and didn't get to enjoy
Brother-
Bill Cosby.
Scripture says this, and this is what black people have always given other folks the benefit of the doubt. And that is how your good deeds weigh against your bad deeds. And if one's good deeds outweigh the bad deeds, then I'm not going to quickly jump and condemn. There are a lot of things I don't agree with, but in the end, I've got to do according to what the scriptures say. At the end, the book is open up, and everything that you've done or failed to do is right there in that book.
There's one scene I don't give Bill Cosby a break at all. I mean, whoever might disagree with me, I mean, anytime you get in a situation where he can make women laugh, he was a good-looking guy, he was funny, he could get anybody he wants. There's no reason in the world. I mean, he likes to, what, do it to dead bodies? I mean, come on. He's got to be.
I'm not even.
That was his M.O. I used to
not,
hear about it, man. Come on.
Everything they put out, everything they put out. Today is 2018. You have to use the sieve. You have to use the sieve with everything that they put out. And what they put out, first of all, they said the man was guilty of rape, and that was not that. When I talked to the sisters who had been at the trial, and they told me, I said, well, wait a minute. I said, what happened? They said in the court proceedings, this is what was said, this is what was said, this is what was said. The alleged victim, when you look at it, it was supposed to be something that happened, and they never had any contact after that.
Did you see any? You didn't see the documentaries made on that stuff, did you?
The woman had the woman had.
Did you see any of the documentaries?
No, the woman had numerous. See, Dick Gregory gave me an experience, and the experience that I got from Dick Gregory was looking beyond the headlines, looking beyond what they say, and looking at why they're saying it, what is their ultimate objective. And when he talked about his Cosby's son being killed, being assassinated on a highway, killed on a highway, he said, and this is what he said on interviews that I had with him, he said the car that he was driving, if it gets a flat, it automatically reinflates. That's a luxury, a kind of car I never drove yet.
Never heard
if my car get a flat,
it goes flat.
I better go to AutoZone and get something to boost it up. So he said it don't even. He said it reinflates itself or something like that. Now he said this. I ain't gonna check it out at AutoZone or at Mercedes-Benz. He said, and then he runs in. Here's these guys that happen to be on the highway and kill him. But he calls his lady friend to come help. The whole thing was convoluted. But when you read the story in the paper, you're reading, wow, this is what happened. No, examine it. This is not what happened. It's not what could have happened. And what he said about the boy being killed was that Bill Cosby was putting together a package to buy NBC at that time.
Right.
And they sent him a message in terms of his boy.
Oh,
that's what you.
Wow.
Well,
I hadn't heard that one.
Well, Dick didn't tell me this like whispering in my ear. Dick told the whole audience.
Right.
All right. So
I never heard
whether
that
he
one.
was right or wrong, Dick Gregory, he said on this one, he was getting ready to buy another cable show. Not a cable, but
corporation.
He said Discovery Channel, or one of the portions of Discovery Channel was up, and they put this hit out on him. And what else did he say? He said that they used a Negro comedian, an obscure Negro comedian, to launch this thing about these women at a nightclub, an obscure nightclub, and that was the setting that they blew out where this whole thing started. When you get, for me, Dick Gregory or no Dick Gregory, when you get all these women gathered together for a photo shoot on the front page of a magazine, the New Yorker magazine, I believe, it was either New York magazine or New Yorker magazine, got all these women from different parts of the country to pose, to be on this cover. These are the ones, the victims of Bill Cosby. I'm saying, well, wait, that ain't never happened. Now, when you go back in time, on the Bill Cosby thing, the New Yorker may have had that story on Harvey Weinstein at the same time, but didn't break that story.
Yeah.
Now, there's a
different
guy
worlds.
named
Two
Mark
different
of Anaheim. People who have YouTube.
Please don't put Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein in the same category.
No,
There's
no,
no
no.
comparison between the two of them.
No.
One
We're
is
talking
a
about
Hollywood
exposure.
Mongol that's
Go ahead.
notorious for, couch,
What do you
ladies
call
on
it?
the couch.
The casting
The
couch.
casting couch. I mean, that's famous. Hollywood is famous for that. But we're talking about a comedian that made people laugh. I mean, made people crack up. I mean, that's the easiest way in the world to get a woman, is to make her laugh.
Really?
I know that to be true. Let me tell you, this guy have him giggle a lot. You have no problems.
I don't know, brother.
Come on, brother.
I laugh at my own jokes. I'm so corny. You understand?
So, I mean, there's a big difference between the two.
Well,
And one is our hero and one's a low life.
brother, I ain't giving up my heroes. I
All
ain't
right.
giving up my heroes.
But you got to call them when they're wrong.
Well, if my heroes has given multi-millions of dollars to schools that have benefited black students
Hey,
going,
all
if
right.
my hero has given job opportunities to young and old, if my hero
Right.
has written checks, unbeknownst to the public, that have benefited businesses, that have benefited nonprofits, I'm not giving up my heroes.
Right.
Their job is to destroy our heroes to the extent where we don't even want to remember them, but we have to remember them and charge them for the good that they did, not some mistake. And when you look at this woman, that's a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
When
I
you
get
look at that
one.
woman, I don't care what she looked like, she epitomizes the movie Get Out.
No.
She epitomizes the movie
No.
Get Out.
She wasn't quite that attractive, man.
She epitomizes the movie Get Out.
So you think it was
Meaning
You
this,
think it was just a setup?
if you didn't learn, if you did not you, if the young brothers out there didn't learn from that movie Get Out, go back and see it based on this case.
Stay away from white women? Is that what you
No, I ain't say that, because I'm gonna let them make that judgment themselves. I'm gonna tell them
That
to
was
see the movie Get Out
that was a
and Black Klansman.
yeah, that was good too.
See the movie
All right,
Get
Leroy,
Out.
we're gonna do a little something for our people and give you for all the people. Give you a little lesson in melanin.
Yes.
You know, remember that piece I wanted to play? I was looking for
Right,
it
you-
last week. And all right, play this piece on melanin. You'd be surprised to see how important this ingredient is. Melanin.
Melanin is a neurochemical that is produced in part through the pituitary and the pineal gland. They both play a central role in the production of melanin, which is ultimately responsible for the color that we have in our skin. Now, historically, it had always been thought that melanin played a significant role in the intellectual propensity of African people. For example, when you study some of the Greek writings on melanin or the color of Africans, many of the Greek philosophers believed that melanin played some sort of a role in how Africans had been able to create and develop some of the sciences that they had come to be known for. So melanin was always considered an intellectual sort of a chemical.
The pineal gland, which produces melanin, it's shaped like a pine cone. And the origin of the word pineal literally means resembling a pine cone. Now, in ancient symbolisms, the pine cone has always been represented because people knew the importance of the pineal gland as it related to melanin and the universe.
Melanin is a molecule. And the concept of melanin is, it is black in its nature. And we find it in the cosmos, we find it in the heavens, we find it in water, we find it in land, we find it in everything that exists.
the sperm of the male and the egg of the woman, they're both layered with melanin, so that when the sperm penetrates the egg, there is a melanin explosion. And that melanin helps to formulate the fetus within that egg. And that fetus is literally coated with the melanin substance. And that melanin substance then goes on to form the brain and the central nervous system. So every human being begins with a melanin explosion.
Melanin is an intelligence. It's an intelligence because it is the dynamic, the primary dynamic in every part of the cell. It's a primary dynamic in the core of the human being as well as to the surface of the human being. Its intelligence is responsible for the forming of the nervous system. Every part of the nervous system has these little black dots all through it, which essentially carry information.
So melanin, from a physical standpoint, is that substance that accounts for what black people refer to as soul. We move differently, we walk differently, we talk differently, because we have access to a different form of energy than other folk.
Not only is melanin a pigment, which is so obvious, but melanin as an intelligence is a communications module that essentially broadcasts as well as receives information by way of light and sound frequency signatures.
Scholars and scientists have been having conferences about melanin, to my awareness, at least since the 1920s.
The pineal glands of most of our white brothers and sisters are calcified, and so they make less melanin. And that comes from the historical relationship to what we call the Permian Ice Age, that 10,000 years of glacial freezing that happened in Europe after the Africans who were the Grimaldi moved up there. And so it became the survival of the fittest. Who was able to adapt could survive. Who wasn't able to adapt died. So those people who were able to get rid of their melanin was able to survive. Those who could not get rid of the melanin, they died.
These scientists said that the pineal gland, they refer to the pineal gland as a vestigial organ. That is a calcified gland within the body that served no purpose, as if the creator would create something that you didn't need. And it was only after the Vietnam War, in the late 60s and early 70s, that they began to rewrite their interpretation of the pineal gland. The reason for that was that a large number of African Americans fought and died during the Vietnam War. And whenever a soldier dies, there's an autopsy that's performed before their body is sent back to Dover Air Force Base. And what they discovered, what these physicians discovered, is that when they performed the autopsies, the 75 to 80% of the African American soldiers had a large functioning pineal gland. The pineal gland is normally about the size of your thumb. So it was not a vestigial organ in 70 to 80% of African Americans, but it is a calcified organ in 75 to 80% of people with European ancestry. So they began to reevaluate the pineal gland. They began to reevaluate melanin.
Fascinating.
Fascinating, right?
Fascinating.
And we're talking about a matter of soul. I mean, God and the devil. I've always preached to here that we're spiritual people.
We definitely are.
All right? And the lack of melanin produces a demonic force.
Well, according to
the amount of melanin you have in your system.
Well,
because when they came from Africa in the beginning, Brother Kaba told the story about Africans' original male, original human being African, and going up into the to the ice ages and losing his pigmentation, losing his melanin,
well,
or losing his spirit.
That is.
And becoming an animal.
That is a thought. It just happens that being exposed to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, being exposed to the book Message to the Black Man, when one gets into that, one sees another pathway as to, quote, the loss of pigmentation, and whether at some time or another human beings went up into the north and lost pigmentation. That's, my mind goes to the Eskimos who's been up there. They look darker than dark. But that's another.
Well, they get a little sun too.
Well, they obviously. The teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when I was doing research for this show, the Dogon, you wanted to talk about the Dogon.
All right.
And the thought on the part of the experts, quote the experts, the European or westernized experts, is that in order for the Dogon to know about the two stars, Sirius B and the dog, what they call the dog stars, the Sirius 1, Sirius 2, that they had to have been visited by someone from outer space. They project that.
No, that's what they say.
Well,
that's what the Dogon said.
I don't know it until I hear the Dogon say it.
Well, they say it in his piece.
I don't know it until the Dogon say it.
Well,
what I'm saying, somebody else is making that interpretation to me.
No, not somebody else is making an interpretation. In this piece that I sent you, you can hear that they got this information. They explain to you how they got this information.
In English.
Yeah, well, they explain how the. It's not.
No,
it's
follow
not
what
a
I'm
joke.
saying.
No, follow me. Follow me.
Okay.
The Dogons explain how they received and how they got this knowledge.
All right.
From beings coming from the planet Sirius.
Let me say this.
And a lot of people don't believe in extraterrestrials.
No.
That there's nobody else in the universe except us.
Well,
you know that's not possible.
Here's my pathway, and it's not. I'm offering to put on the table that, and it ties in somewhat with the melanin piece, and that is, in fact, what Valentine said. Part of what he said it's a communication piece.
Right.
If you remember his statement about communication.
Right.
And there is something called telepathy. There is something called how fast thought is. There is something called that is studied in the West by the Europeans, by the Russians in particular, and by these people here, called remote viewing. And why they have us looking at a spaceship coming and telling black people ages ago what the universe is about.
No, they're not telling us anything about like this. The Dogons are telling you how they got the information.
All right.
All right? They got the information from, well, let's play the piece and then we'll come back.
But
right?
before you play, I'm not satisfied until I actually talk to a Dogon and have them and question them on it.
Well, I went over this stuff in the 70s, man.
I told you I was exposed.
I've been looking at this serious mystery since the 70s when the book first came out.
Okay.
And I know for a fact, this is what the Dogons say about how they got the information.
Right.
They wonder about how they can tell you about a star in a system that you can't see with the naked eye.
Yes.
All right? Only by a telescope.
Yes.
And they discovered it in 1950.
Yes.
They say so in this piece.
Yes.
All right? Now, the Dogons say they were visited. Their ancestors were visited years ago by people called the Nomos.
Okay, all right.
And they received this information about the solar system.
What did the Nomos look like?
Amphibians.
Okay.
And appearance. Now, you've heard these stories for years.
Okay, all right.
The dolphins are extraterrestrial. Dolphin-like creatures, fish-like creatures.
Well,
these rumors have been going around for years.
No, let's play the piece.
You ever watch X-Files? Oh, you really get a kick out of that one. But, I mean, you go back to Roswell, where we got all this reverse engineering. You know, the only reason they start coming down is because we start setting off H-bombs.
Remember, it's not difficult to remember the movie Hidden Figures?
Of
The
course.
women,
Right.
the women who knew, not who knew, but the women, these math geniuses, hidden away inside of NASA. Today even, math, scientific geniuses hidden away. The same thing applies to all these other areas where they want to, Roswell and whatever, they want to apply a being from outer space as opposed to the genius of black people who very well may have been flying or still flying ships, what we call ships, spaceships, whatever.
Well, you
or
go back to the
traveling-
ancient Egyptians.
Go ahead.
They were black people.
And,
They're from the universe. They were from the planet Sirius.
okay,
All right?
they
This
ain't
is
no
where
more
our
than-
ancestors,
Now-
we are children of the universe.
those,
That's where we get this.
the black Egyptians are from the planet Sirius.
Right.
And so are the amphibians, the nomos, from the planet, from the star Sirius.
Well, you got different type of extraterrestrial.
Have different neighbors, right?
different types.
Okay, hey, listen, as long
Oh,
as our people
you know
get
your brother's
credit,
going to help you out, help you understand this kind of stuff.
as long as our people get credit, and this is
We have
breaking.
credit already.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
If
The
we
people who
did,
don't recognize it lack melanin. They don't have the
as
spiritual.
long as black people give credit to black people, if we did give credit to black people ourselves, then we would approach the education of our black children quite differently. We would not have them victims of an education system that is methodically dumbing down America and our people first. If we have a different look and giving our people credit and not seeing Hidden Figures as some movie dramatization, but the movie Hidden Figures is an indication of the mental capacity and creativity of black women, not excluding black
Or
men.
black people, period.
You see, so coming off of Hidden Figures, we should really have, I'm talking about as though Hidden Figures was shown yesterday. Coming off that film, we should have math clubs for our little girls, for our young girls, math clubs for our young boys. But I'm dealing with the women, because if the women, I feel, if the women get an education without the better than, I'm better than a boy, I'm better than another person, but with humility. If we get an education with
That's
humility,
what's most important.
then we're going to move ahead quicker. And then people like Trump and Kavanaugh and O'Connell and these other kind of creatures, Giuliani, won't have the kind of impact
Listen, one thing
that
about
they have.
what they're showing us, exactly how ridiculous they are. This Kavanaugh thing, I mean, this is ridiculous. There's nothing democratic about this. They're showing their asses.
Correct.
Big time.
Correct.
So this is when democracy will shine. Just keep the faith. Just stay steady and pass out the knowledge that we need to pass out, and just keep on going steady.
Agreed.
Look, I
Agreed.
had a challenge this week. I might as well let it be known. Yesterday I got out of the hospital at 10 o'clock. Monday I went through a surgery, heart surgery. Had 2 stents put in my heart. Through the wrist. Yeah, I've got a Band-Aid here. Through the wrist here. Modern technology, 21st century.
You said you can go home now.
You can
I
go
said,
home
really?
now. And we fixed it. Look at the 21st century. 20 years ago, that would have been open heart surgery. But look
Laid
at the
up.
marvels that exist. I'm sitting here on television a day after.
Blessed
That's,
to be sitting
that's a
here.
blessing. Because I stay right with God.
That's right.
I stay right with God. I went in there and had one artery closed down 90%. 90%? I hate to go to the hospital, right? I'm sitting there watching a football game. I felt a little drowsy and I was breathing heavy. And I ain't never breathed heavy. I'm active. And all of a sudden, I said to my wife, hey, it's time to go. It's time to go. And we went to the hospital, and after the surgery, they told me it was 90% closed. I got in there just in time. I would have had a mass heart attack if I'd have waited a week, I guess. And put it off like I always put everything off, going to the hospital.
Can do it tomorrow.
You know, I'm one of these macho ex-Marines. I sit there and kill myself by being stupid.
That's how
But
I've
I
been
mean,
started.
that's a blessing. When you got a loving wife like I mean, I can't leave my baby. So I got something to live for, and I got to come and see you on Wednesdays, right? Power to the people. And here I am. So I'm just saying, miracles can happen. It's a new life for me. I know I have a new horizon. So I've got another chance to do something for us, as people, period, as human beings.
Now, you know.
You want to go
that
to the
this-
Dogons to
this
talk about
show-
the extraterrestrial?
Yeah.
Okay? Let's roll a piece on the Dogons, all right? Now listen to how they talk about the Nomos coming, visiting our ancestors.
Okay.
The Hogan, the high priest of Eru, is the chief of Dogon religious knowledge. Selected more than 30 years ago by signs and prophecies, he lives a prisoner in a small temple compound. The Hogan is adored and provided for by his people, but cannot be touched by man or woman. He is the living repository of all that is known. His isolation from worldly needs and worldly concerns ensures that the sacred knowledge he keeps will remain pure. Should the Hogan be contaminated by human contact, he must be killed. Away from the clamor of village life, in caves and rock shelters, the teachings of the Hogan are renewed. Tribal legend tells us that beings called Numo descended from the sacred star and appeared before the Dogon ancestors. The Dogon were entrusted by the Numo with 366 symbols given without meaning. The Dogon were charged with interpreting them and preserving the information for future generations. The symbols reveal an astonishing scope of astronomical knowledge, an infinite number of stars and spiraling worlds. After more than 5 years among the Dogon people, Dr. Guggenheim has gradually gained the confidence of the Dogon elders and acceptance into the inner circle of secret knowledge.
The Dogon believe the universe was born in a vast explosion, and as it opened up, everything that we know about and everything that the Dogon know about in the world came pouring out, and nothing was left except a shell. This empty shell became the star that they call the Pontolo, and that we call Sirius B.
In 1950, astronomers confirmed the existence of the Dogon star. At the United
Now, as you see there, astronomers didn't discover this star until 1950. All right? The Dogon said, as they say in the piece, their ancestors received this information from the Nomos, who were beings from the planet Sirius. And they gave them all the information about what the star was made like, what the mass of the Earth was. Now, these Europeans were there to find out, how do these Africans know about
Correct.
all this? How did they get to know all this stuff? Which we just discovered with a big, huge telescope. And they're drawing it in the sand. They're amazed. They're saying, now, where could they possibly get this? So they believe it more so than anybody else.
Well, they
see that no other way they could get it.
They study original people of the planet Earth in order to unearth knowledge and intelligence that will enable them to live longer than their 6,000 years.
Okay.
And therefore,
And that's
when
force
when they do study, this is what was shared with us, a group of us. African religion and philosophy is the basis of Western psychiatry and Western psychology. African religion and philosophy. And a step up from that in the Western study is parapsychology, which is a new term to me a few years ago. Parapsychology is that area that they haven't been able to measure yet, what is called telepathy, what is called, they call it remote viewing, one aspect of it. How people know things that intellectually they should not know, but they know. And I'm dealing with your point about they believe that the Nomos, or however it's pronounced,
Nomos,
gave these people, the Dogon, this knowledge about the universe. Because here's a guy, a European, who stays among these people till he can win their confidence. But that story is repeated over and over again in terms of Europeans going into Brazil, going into the Amazon jungle, going into the jungles in Indonesia, going into the Congo. I mean, they really explore.
Well, where did the Dogons get this information?
No. I'm not debating that. I'm saying that what it points to for them in terms of uncovering that is a wealth of study for us to verify and to see how we are in, how that knowledge benefits us. It's interesting that they're not in the Pyrenees Mountains in Europe studying some people up there in the caves as to what they got.
What I'm saying, I mean, you and I should gather up an expedition and go visit the Dogons.
With the right
That's
grants,
what I like to see.
With the right grants, yes.
You know what I mean? That's what I like to see. You and I be visiting this and see where, and you and I sitting down and talking directly to the Dogons. Where did you get this amazing information? What other information do you have? And there are the Mayans were visited. The American Indians were visited. I mean, these stories, I'll bring in the proof.
No. See,
aliens exist. Look out.
See.
I've got a new life now. So.
How is it, how possible is it that the universe was created by people who are called black folks? That the entire universe was created.
The Egyptians.
And did whatever they were called, dealing with millions of years. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the only thing I have to go on, not the only thing, the expansion of what I have to go on is the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I brought in this article. It's called A Martian State of Mind. It's March 20th, 2017. And it's the Citizen's Guide to the Future. This is the magazine, but I got off the internet today. And it talks about, because we're talking about the universe, how these people know about something in the universe. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the teachings that Muslims are exposed to within the Nation of Islam, talks to life being on Venus, life being on Mars.
Okay.
And the way he gave it to us is in terms of, if I remember correctly, there are Muslims out there who would be ready to correct me. I'm saying if I remember correctly, he said that the Martians were a tall people. Now, here's a man saying this going back to the 30s, coming forward. The Martians were tall people, but they would not allow themselves to be observed by these probes and whatnot that they're sending up. Now, this article called The Martian State of Mind, it said, did the CIA really astrally project to Mars in 1984? And that's what we call remote viewing. It talks about Stargate, which is a CIA operation, which some of it is open to the public. I'm just talking about if the Europeans actually, the Western, if Caucasians, people without melanin, can astro travel, then surely black people can and did at some point. It says Stargate focused on remote viewing, which involves using the mind alone to see things that aren't immediately present. The document proposes that remote viewing is inherent to every human to some degree, and probably a heavenly form of self-preservation.
Of course.
And going back to the melanin, if this remote viewing, what they call remote viewing, being able to meditate and travel and map out or know where things are in the universe that the common ordinary person doesn't know, that if they're doing this, then the hidden knowledge that black people have during the time that we've been asleep while they have been running the planet, that hidden knowledge would also...
How have they been running the planet? Not on a spiritual basis.
The European?
Not on a spiritual basis, on a demonic basis.
There's no debate on that.
This is the whole thing. We are the spiritual people of the universe. I'm covering everybody now. We are the spiritual people of the universe.
No
okay?
argument there.
So now
Agreed.
we're letting them make complete fools of themselves. Just like we're letting Trump make a complete fool of himself.
Well,
but we have to take hold of what we have as a spirit, as a DNA of our spiritual energy. We know we got soul.
Trump allows
now
us
we
to
have
know.
we have to spread this joy amongst our brethren.
Trump allows us to know
the black
what we
people
know.
who are really suffering on this planet today aren't going inside themselves and reaching into the God center within themselves and finding the spirit that lies within. That's why they're suffering. They're becoming Americanized or white, or become greedy, selfish, and all the other ills that is
Materialistic.
Materialistic. And you can see it all over the place.
Yes.
Self-envy, I mean, all the ills of the planet that we are not basically built for. We're a spiritual people. That's is what, I mean, everybody has it in them. There's one race, the human race, really, basically.
Correct.
Now, we're going to need some aliens to come down there to get us together. All right? But I think black people are going to be the lead. We've always been the lead in everything anyway. We went to the Moors, and we saw how the Moors, we've been lied to. These people, look at Trump. Look what Trump is doing. Look, I mean, I'm in total amazement. After having a blessing from God with Obama for 8 years, people go back to their white supremacy and bathe in tribal warfare.
It was always...
Of course it was always there. But the point, that was always wrong.
Well,
it was always wrong, and you have to stick up for right.
The therefore in this is what? For us.
Universal peace and love energy. I mean...
How are we going to affect that?
Or you have to get back and get bad about it and promote it even more.
How do we affect that among us, our people?
You got to learn to love one another more. We have to feel sorry for one. We have to feel sorry for Cosby because he didn't put us up right. He didn't do right. He was our hero, and he let us down. Out there monkeying around with the wrong thing. I mean, he shouldn't have done that. I mean, no excuse for anybody that powerful and that beneficial to us as a people should he get caught up in that kind of garbage.
Well,
I mean, he did a bad thing. Own up to it, Bill, and move on. Now, you see how ugly he got because he got demonic? He used to be a good-looking guy. And when you're evil, you look evil. Like, you see how ugly Trump is getting? You see how ugly he's getting? And what is he doing? That's another demonic force. You can see it. Everybody knows what he's doing. But see, Lindsey Graham, McConnell, and the rest of them they're playing a game. They're going to be found out. Come election time, now everybody get out and vote. Be righteous. I don't care what you really think. You know these are a bunch of lies. I mean, if you're going along with the game because you're benefiting from it, it'll come out bad for you in the end.
It will.
Because ain't nothing right about this. Is this America?
It will.
The land of the free? I mean, all your basic principles are going out the window if you let this man get away with what he's doing. I mean, ain't nothing right about him. And Kavanaugh, I mean, what do kids do in private school? You don't know anything about talking to women. You get silly and stupid. At 17, he was accused at 17 of what? Raping a girl? Trying to force it on her. You know, they say no, 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 and you force them hard enough. I mean, when you're a kid, you believe that, you know? But this is a situation where he put his hand over her mouth and, oh, yeah. She'll like it eventually. But he's a young kid, don't know any better. And his brother, his buddy probably dared him to do it. They had a pact. They showed up in their yearbook. Devil's Triangle, they call it. Oh, come on. If he was smart, he'd own up to it and say, I'm sorry. But no, these are dummies. They're going to come out and say, oh, no, I was a choir boy. I was a great guy all the time.
It's a lot at stake, and it's a lesson for all of us.
Right?
It's a lesson for all of us.
Right.
As squeaky clean. I don't know whether the allegations are true or not, but for them to come up at this point in time, I look at the orchestration of God's hand in this whole thing.
Amen. God's plan.
And I look at it, if I don't agree that Cosby is a bad guy.
Well, he did a bad thing. He did some bad things. Now, that's something you should own up. We have to own up to that. He did good things and he did bad things.
One of the first lessons.
If he did some bad things, he has to own up to it.
One of the first lessons that I learned in Scripture in Catholic school was Jesus saying, let he who is not guilty cast the first stone.
Right.
And I used to ponder, I said, wow.
Right.
Nobody picked up that stone. Right. So I ain't throwing no stones at Bill Cosby. And as I say, I ain't giving up one of our heroes because of their allegations. Because when you read Ginsburg, 100 Years of Lynching, when I was in that court, and I was listening to that prosecutor ask for the time for Cosby to get such and such a time, and the way he described this heinous act, he just stopped short of saying this big burly Negro. He stopped short of that. And I'm looking at this guy. These guys have built reputations off of black caucuses. No, I'm just...
Leroy, do you think he drugged these women?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Don't you know back in the day, that's what you did? A lot of guys did that. A lot of guys did that. This was Sodom and Gomorrah in the 70s.
Was?
Where were you?
What is it now?
What? It ain't as bad as it used to be. I mean,
what? Are you serious?
Not. I mean, you don't have 42nd Street the way it used to be in the 70s. Come on.
42nd Street has moved.
Before AIDS, we're talking about pre-AIDS.
Moved to another area.
We're talking about pre-AIDS. Wow. I don't know where to find it.
You know what?
It was quite in the open before.
There's a report, Brother Winston, that calls America Gonorrhea America.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another report that just came out in the last 2 days. More children are being born in the U.S., born with syphilis.
Really?
Than the CDC. If I remember I just saw it 2
Center
days
for
ago.
Disease Control.
But it's called Gonorrhea America. There's a report, Gonorrhea America, because this thing is going buck wild.
What?
I'm not playing.
Nowadays.
Today.
Today.
I just saw this report. People right now are going to their Google and pulling up Gonorrhea America because
I hadn't heard that.
the sexually transmitted disease is going rampant, and they're afraid that the proliferation of it will nullify the antibiotics or the things that they've used to kill this stuff. Yeah, Gonorrhea America. And the children. So we have a situation where the entire nation, and because you can see it in the movies, you can, and our children have access to pornography on the internet.
Yeah.
And our children are looking at pornography, and they're looking at this stuff, and that's their classroom. All of us are affected by, when you see this stuff, you better stay home. Not one better stay home right where they at.
Yeah.
So Sodom and Gomorrah, Dick Gregory said, he said if God don't destroy this thing, He's gonna have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah. I said, what? He said if God don't take this thing out, He's gonna have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah. I said, wow.
Today.
Dick. I said, hey. I said, that's one of the last.
I thought the 70s and 80s were worse than that.
So.
Prior to 1980.
This thing on.
The Dogon?
Remote viewing, just not in place of the nomos coming or whatnot. I'm not, but this thing of parapsychology is a study of quote, black people, original people, knowing how to do things that these other folks don't know how to do, that is spiritual,
okay,
in the spiritual realm. And parapsychology, Columbia University, Yale, all of these institutions have that capacity, those
You know
roles.
what? I'm going to bring a book to you called The Kabbalion by Hermes Trismegistus. Valentine, I used to go, we must have done...
What's the name of the book?
The Kabbalion.
The Kabbalion, oh, okay,
By
Kabbalion,
3 initiates. And we'll go over this because it preaches that the universe is mental. Everything is mentally controlled. How you can move mountains by your mental thought. How you can read vibration, feel energy, and you can raise a table. I can rise up. And we're going into because I have a new life. Power to the people.
I want to say this to those who, before they go off, pray. If you believe in any kind of supreme being, teach your children how to pray.
Amen.
Teach your children how to pray.
And be righteous.
And be righteous yourself.
You have to be fair. One thing we have to learn how to be is fair with one another. I mean, all humans, basically. But I mean, we as a race of people, we have to learn how to be fair and respectful to one another. That's how we raise up the consciousness of all.
Exactly.
And that's the only way. I mean, you might have an ego and you think you're it, but we don't get anywhere unless we do it together. So the God in me loves the God in you, and I mean that. And stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist Experience.
Thank you.
We're going to bring it to you. All right? This is an important year. 77. Right, Playboy? God bless.
God
Power
bless
to
us.
the people.
Thank you.
Right?
Hey, brother.
And got me on the road.